Hi there, this is Woo. I'm joined here with McBobber. We're doing a Star Wars Unlimited aspect tier list. So we've taken all four of the aspects, paired them with heroism and villainy, and we'll be ranking them 1 to 8 and kind of talking about the specific cards that kind of define each. So without further ado, here's the lists. Mine is the bottom right, McBobber's is the top right. So McBobber, I know these are very similar, but I want to know if anything like stand out to you a little bit here as worth mentioning before we delve into each specific aspect.
Yeah, so while they are pretty similar, we do have our blue hero and red villain flipped from each other. Basically, I think I just like probably red villain a little more than you do, and vice versa for the blue hero. I will make a note that the D tier there, the yellow hero is probably significant. There's a bigger gap there between that and the other aspects than everywhere else. Otherwise, it's not a huge difference to me. From S to A to B to C. There's maybe small gaps. There's definitely green villains that stand out, but for the most part, it's not like it's going to dominate everything all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the six in the middle specifically are mushed pretty close together, whereas the D tier is probably like a bit lower, and I do think Green Villain is a bit higher, but yeah, we're gonna break them down now. So number one, Green Villain. So these are some standouts. In your opinion, what is kind of holding this color together? Why is this number one for you?
Well, I just think those three. Look at the top three cards in particular. Those cards are so pushed, and they all even kind of synergize with each other. Like Vader can pull out the super laser tech. The super laser tech, if you get him early, he can get you to play Vader faster, and they're just such powerful cards, right? Ambush is a great keyword, and then also you're getting out more guys with Vader. I mean, that's obviously great. His stats are good too. 5/7. It's hard to kill a 7 cost or 7 health guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're great cards. I mean, what more is there to say about it? I think we all see these cards all the time on anyone who plays this game.
Yeah, I think Vader is probably going to be the most expensive legendary in this set. I think he's kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to like these big finishers. And I think Ramp in general is just so strong in this game because of the free leader deploy action. Getting to your leader before your opponent can be such a board changing dynamic. And we also included here the Emperor's Royal Guard. Um, Kind of a shout out specifically to Palpatine, correct? It is strong specifically in his deck.
Yeah, I think if you're playing with Palpatine, the 3/5, often a Sentinel, that I think that's right up there with these other guys too. Like that's super good.
Yeah. And naturally, Overwhelming Barrage, man, there's not much to say about that card. Just like deletes opponents' boards. So yeah, I think the top of this pool is very strong. I do think that it's not the deepest of the card pools, but their top is so powerful that it kind of warrants that number one.
I do think there's some other cards that are still pretty good. You got the Shore Trooper. I forget his full name, but the 2 cost Shore Trooper guy, he's pretty good too. But
Season
these are
Short
definitely
Trooper,
the
yeah.
standouts. Yes, Season Shore Trooper.
All right, so the next we're going to talk about the A tier. We're going to go kind of in your order where we flipped two of them, but we all have them kind of in the same rank. So Yellow Villain. Want to start talking about the kind of elephant in the room, which is Boba Fett leader. I think one of these cards, the Fett's Fire Spray, specifically is a call out there. It's only powerful with Boba Fett. Uh, he is kind of the menace, and there's been like online tournaments, like casual tournaments, but it's the most we got right now, and like Boba Fett kind of cleans up in these things. And I think it's worth noting that a lot of that has to do with Fett's Fire Spray. But beyond that, I want to have you talk to me a little bit about like kind of what is the rest of the pool offering, and is it without Boba Fett? Would you also still consider it like A tier?
I think I still would consider it A tier. It's definitely not as good without Boba Fett. He synergizes with all these cards so well that it's hard to pull it away from him. But still, the Boba unit, Bosk, and Seventh Fleet Defender, even though Good to Me Dead, these are still really good cards. There's like an event package in Yellow Villain where you you got really strong events in there, and then cards that reward you for playing events. So like Bosk is the most notable example, but even Jabba or Bib Fortuna, they can fill that role as well. So there's so much synergy going on that, and just strong stats. Like Boba's a 3/5, 7 fleet is like probably the best 3-drop spaceship in the game, and then Bosk is probably the best 5-drop in the game. Like
Yeah,
they're
in a
just really good
notoriously
cards.
weak slot, right? The 5 slot in this game is probably pretty weak for most colors, but they get a real banger there.
I feel like most other 5-drops, they're good with ECL because they have some sort of effect where they reward you for rushing in. But with Bosk, you don't need it. Like he already has ambush. So I think especially if your deck doesn't have ECL, if you're not green, Bosk is even better. He's so good.
Yeah. High rate units, right? Like it's 2 of the best 3 drop, 5 drop. Like that event we put up there, No Good to Me Dead, very strong. Yeah, it's a good color. All right, next up we had in the identical spot we had Villain Blue. So we've got some shout outs here. I think one of them was just revealed yesterday during the final card dump for the set is Super Laser Blast, the board wipe, defeat all units card. It's kind of cementing Blue Villain as this is the control color. Like if you want to be killing your opponent's things, this is the color for you. Uh, what else you seeing here? What do you think is kind of holding this together?
Well, I'm a big control player. That's usually my favorite thing to play, and this speaks to me like perfectly. But to me, the best card here is Power of the Dark Side. I like cards that make the opponent play suboptimally, where they're just worried that this card's going to hit them all the time, right? Like they can't deploy their leader unless they have other guys. And you don't even have to have this card in your hand. Just the threat that it could be there is enough to make them make weird decisions and play poorly. And that's like the perfect card, right? It's beyond powerful. It's the reason. It's like the main reason I want to play Blue Villain is to get that card.
Yeah, it puts like their opponents kind of caught in like this tension, especially late in the game, where it's like, do they keep deploying to tax your single target removal, or do they hold back so that they don't get obliterated by the board wipe? And if you're able to kind of maneuver in a way where like they're making suboptimal decisions, I think it's very strong. Um, yeah, I added a couple other of these like interesting units. Inferno Force, a really solid 2-drop. Death Trooper is like another like just a value play that can often snipe something. And Avenger being like a really powerful follow up to the board wipe. But
Yeah, I'd
yeah,
say Avenger's possibly the best of like the late game expensive spaceships.
yeah, it's got like a nice immediate effect. Um, and like also repeated, right? Like they get basically a turn to answer it, or it's just kind of done, right? All
I
right.
would like to give a little shout out to my boy Lieutenant
Oh
Childson.
yeah.
If you're playing mono blue villain, that guy's incredible. Um, you're not always playing that, so that's probably why he's not here. But he's almost the reason to play that mono blue aspect because he does so much, but it doesn't really work out so well unless you're playing a ton of blue cards. So it's probably only in mono.
Yeah, mono or like splash the 3 green cards we talked about earlier, and then play the rest blue or something.
Or if you have a lot of card draw, just to make sure you have a lot of blue cards, maybe.
All right.
Not that
So
card draw is easy to get.
not yet. All right. So now we're gonna go into what I had as the second highest ranked, but we both had them high. So it's the Red Heroes. So here are some call outs. Red Hero for me, kill your opponent as quickly as possible. It's like that's the identity. I think it's all glued together by For a Cause I Believe In, which is the most powerful like direct damage to face card. But they also have K2, which explodes and deals damage to opponent's face. Some of the most valuable like early drop units up here: Sabine and Green Squadron A-Wing. And a new card that I want you to talk about. I think we gave it a nice nickname, right? Sabine's Fire Spray. So, what do you think about this new one? Have you had a chance to mess with it?
So it's only been out for like a day or so, but I've seen it in action a little bit, and I think the Gorilla Attack Pod is super good. Um, I'm not typically a very traditional aggro player. I do think Red Hero is the aggro king though, and that card does excite me. It comes in ready. It's got great stats. It's not crazy expensive. even the grit, I don't know how often that's going to be relevant, but hey, it doesn't hurt to have it. So I'm a fan.
Yeah. I think it is the identity there. I think right now, if you're playing red and now not playing aggro, you're mostly doing it for like force throw in some like blue force deck, which isn't actually even a heroic specific card. And then you get like the valuable 2 drops, but for the most part, like so much of its identity is tied around like the for a cause stuff and like getting direct damage to your opponent. But it's just very strong. Like it does that very well. So
Absolutely. I think K2SO in particular for me is such a standout where he's always going to give you value of like no matter what. You can't stop that guy. He's going to hurt you.
all right, so we've kind of covered our top 4, so we're gonna dig a little into the second half here. We're gonna start with where we probably had the most uh, difference in our ranks. So we're gonna go with what you had as your top of B, which is Red Villain. So tell me, why is this kind of right in the middle, like as an aspect?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm more of a control player, and I think Red Villain is really also a control color. Not as much as Blue Villain, that's why it's lower, but there's just a lot of really good cards here. You do have all the force trait synergy stuff, which is pretty strong. I wish there was more guys to enable that stuff, but what we have, Force Choke is I kind of underrated Force Choke when I first saw it, but it's come around to really convincing me that giving a card to the opponent's not as bad as I first thought it would be. And that 5 damage is quite relevant. Sniping Sabine or that's something 5 health. That's so effective for such a low cost. And then some of the other cards are just great value. Ruthless Raider, always giving you value when you play it. Super strong card. I like Fifth Brother a lot. He's pretty versatile. And even the TIE Interceptor, it's not one of my favorite of the red villain cards, but it's real good. Guaranteed damage is hard to it's hard to deny.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Red Villain is the ships. I think those 2 ships are just like they're really good and like really good at stopping aggro, specifically like the Interceptor, kind of nuking basically any aggressive ship that Hero tends to deploy. Where I kind of back off on Red Villain is, although I see the payoffs for Force being strong, Force Lightning, Force Choke, Force Throw, which was mentioned, I find their enablers to be lacking. I think Fifth Brother and Seventh Sister are both kind of okay, but not great, especially when not played with Grand Inquisitor. And they also just don't have a lot of Force units, so whereas the heroes have a little bit of an easier time getting their synergies going, it feels a little miss right now for me with the villains, and I think that's kind of why I have them a little lower. I think they're kind of caught between, like, do they just want to be pure control? Do they want force synergy stuff? And really not having many exciting units for me outside of their 2 spaceships.
I would like to, as far as exciting units go, I would like to give a shout out to Ozzel. He's not the flashiest card, but he kind of plays into what I was saying earlier about messing with the opponent's plans and kind of doing some mind games. I notice when I play him, people are scared of him, right? They're scared of letting me have the initiative and potentially getting out a good card on. I don't even necessarily have a good card in my hand to play with him, but the threat is there in people's minds, so they often prioritize removing him. I think he's better than people give him credit for.
Yeah, he might be. All right, let's talk about some green heroes now. So I'll start with this one. For me, green heroes is about stats and numbers on units, kind of headlined by Battlefield Marine and Echo Base Defender being like one of, if not the best, like 2 and 3 drop in the game, respectively. And then also a nice little shout out for Alliance Dispatcher. This is more of a call out for the Luke leader because I think it works tremendously with him because he can give it a shield. Does not work that great outside of him though. Other than that, I want you to talk to me a little bit about U-Wing Reinforcement, another new card that we got yesterday during the final card reveal. So it's a pretty exciting one. So tell me, what are you doing with it?
So I love U-Wing Reinforcement. To me, that's one of the strongest cards in the game, probably. It's maybe a little bit unfortunately locked into Green Hero, but the effect it has is so strong. You get to dig through 10 cards, which that's a lot of cards, and you just play 7 cost worth of units. It doesn't matter what traits they have. There's no restrictions what kind of units. The colors don't matter. You just get whatever you want, 7 cost. And as we've seen, Green Hero has lots of really efficient, low cost guys. So it's easy to just dump out a bunch of really strong cards. Get a couple Marines and a Echo Base Defender. You're happy. You can even just get a 7-drop. You don't have to get 3 guys. You can go get Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or what, depending on your color combination. It's just super versatile, and the few games I've played with this, I've played it a few times. It's never missed. It's always been super high impact. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think it's really good. A little bit of note here is like Green Hero actually probably makes up two popular decks. The Leia aggro deck is green, obviously, because she's green, and then I think Luke paired with green is also kind of strong and pretty popular. Yet we both actually kind of rated green in the bottom half of aspects. I'm wondering, like, what do you think they're missing right now? What is holding them back from being like the dominant half of the deck as opposed to the supplement in these decks?
I think the spaceships are a little lacking. Bright Hope's good, but that's really all they got until you get to 8 resources for home 1. You can splash in neutral grain ships. You got like the Star Viper, but even that's not, I'm not super excited by that card, but it's playable. And the other thing I think that's holding it back is lack of removal. There's really no removal at all in green other than like Strike True, and that's only okay. So that's probably the main criticisms I'd have here. I think removal is key.
Hmm. Well, they do get to run Energy Conversion Lab in their decks, so, which definitely helps.
Unless your layout was splashing something else, but yeah.
All right, so we're gonna talk now about Blue Hero, which I had a little higher than you. Um, for me, it's kind of just headlined by these fellas, like the Force Boys, Yoda, Kanan, Obi, Luke, right? Blue Hero for me is like the epitome of mid-range. It's not a control color for me, the same way like Blue Villain is. This is just trying to play high rate units on curve, which works. And all these guys have force synergy. This is the easiest way to enable any force any force requiring cards like Force Throw. It binds all things. The force is with me. Like anything that requires force units in play, this color's got an abundant amount of them. Although that's kind of all it has, I think. There's not much else for me to like go on right now. I think sometimes it gets stuck a little bit in the like one guy a turn thing, and like you just can get out tempoed, and like bounce is very good against a lot of these guys, and it's hard sometimes to get sticky on the board when all you're doing is playing a guy a turn.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's the reason I had this color a little lower. It's just, if you get behind, it's really hard to catch up. And it's because it's basically just units. And they're good units. I love all these cards here on the screen. But it's kind of got the same weaknesses as Green Hero, but I think even to a little bit more of an extent. There's no removal. The spaceships are weak. You got the Arc 170, but it's not that great. And overall, it doesn't have anything that's really unfair or knocking my socks off. The Luke Skywalker unit is incredible. In a vacuum, that's one of the best cards in the game. But there's just not a whole lot around it that's really supporting him to excite me to want to play this color.
I think it's close, and maybe even in this set something will like kind of click, and there'll be like some really powerful like blue focus hero deck available. All right, you ready for the exciting part? So this one I think we discussed a little bit. It belongs in a tier of its own, kind of separated from everything else here, right? This is Hero Cunning. I kind of had to find some stuff to put on the screen. Millennium Falcon's a good card. It's just like a really aggressive card. And Han's like a pretty good endgame unit. There's just kind of not a lot going on in between, and there, to me, doesn't feel like there's any plan for Hero Cunning. What do you think? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think you're right about there really not being a whole lot of cohesion here. Like Yellow Villain has all this event synergy stuff, right? Like you got Java, you got Bosk, you got Bib Fortuna, and Yellow Hero has nothing that rewards you for playing events. And it's like Yellow's the event heavy color. It's the most event defined, and you get nothing to reward you for playing those cards. Even the Yellow Hero events themselves are pretty weak. Spark of Rebellion's playable. It could be nice sometimes to yank a card out of the opponent's hand, but that's sort of more of a late game controlly thing, and there's not really other cards leaning into that. So I'm pretty disappointed in Yellow Hero overall. Not much removal. The space is weak. You really only got the Falcon, and the Falcon, while good, it has that downside that I don't like. It's a tough one. This color needs help. We need another set.
Yeah, I think with Falcon, either you're just like hard aggro and the resource doesn't matter, or you're playing Han, right, where you like ramp every turn with his ability, and that's what's paying for the Falcon's downside. I do
Right.
think the leaders in yellow actually have a lot of potential if their card pool was a little stronger, and even now Han might, when paired with another color, and like most of your deck is probably just going to be from that other color. I think he can do some interesting things, like with that Ewing reinforcement. Han can get there 2 turns early. Seems pretty good. Like, oh, I used a bunch of cards to ramp, but I'm playing 3 off of this one card. So, um, but yeah, I think the color is substantially weaker than the rest too.
I definitely agree on the leaders. Even Jen, I think she's got a pretty cool ability. We've seen a draft that she's good, but just the yellow card pool for heroes is not good enough to make her worth it most of the time.
All right, so yeah, that's our tier list. They're pretty similar. I think we'd both love to hear any opinions. So, like, if you want to comment or write us on Discord, I'm Woo in the main Star Wars Unlimited Discord, and that's McBobber there in the main Star Wars Unlimited Discord. And we both kind of get pretty active there sometimes. I'll also check the comments. We both also stream on Late Night Gaming most Saturday evenings at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. I'll have a link to that page as well in the comments. And yeah, it'd be great just to like have any discussion, even disagreement. I always welcome disagreement. It's really fun. And with that, I think we're just gonna close this off. So appreciate you listening, and catch you later.
Thanks for watching, everyone.